are encouraged to find shelter further inland. We are evacuating tens of thousands of people from the barrier island as residents and visitors are heading to are heeding to our advice. I can tell you, yesterday afternoon I saw golf carts leaving on Manatee Avenue, leaving Holmes Beach. Level A, and it's important to note, Level A includes Rabonia, Palmetto Point, Terracea, and the tens of thousands of mobile and manufactured homes in Manatee County. We will be turning off the water to the islands at sunset tonight to try and save the infrastructure from Ian's wrath. The sewage lift stations on the islands will also be turned off to prevent possible damage to the system. People need to take this seriously. Evacuate now if you are in Level A, Level B, or if you are in Level C and are concerned, especially individuals around Wares Creek. We have more shelter locations open today at noon. We added Hale Middle School and Buffalo Creek Middle School. In addition to the others opened at 8 a.m. this morning, Braden River High School, which is pet friendly, Manatee High School, which is pet friendly, Mills Elementary School, also pet friendly, Bayshore Elementary School, Freedom Elementary School, Gullett Elementary School, Harvey Elementary School, Lee Middle School, Myakka City Elementary School, Miller Elementary School, McNeil Elementary School, Rogers Garden Elementary School, Williams Elementary School, and Willis Elementary School. And I feel like I'm back on the school board. More than 229,000 sandbags have been distributed to date at sites all over the county. Our supplies have been exhausted, though. We are out of bags. This storm, even though it's doing what hurricanes do and it has a little jog here and a little jiggle there, it is still a major hurricane. Hurricanes do what this one is doing. A little bit of guidance to the south doesn't mean we are out of the woods. We can expect flooding, tornadoes, driving rain, and storm surge are the threats that we are anticipating. And we are anticipating it to start tonight. We will probably begin seeing tropical storm winds and rain, typical tropical storm conditions around midnight tonight. If you are in an evacuation area, evacuate and be in your safe area by sundown. That way you can get settled in, because when the tropical weather begins to come into our area, we will lock down the EOC and we will lock down the shelters to protect the individuals that have evacuated and gone into the shelters for safety. If you are evacuating to a friend's house, a colleague's home that's inland and in an area outside of the evacuation zone, try to get there before sundown. You can already see the outer bands have begun to hit our area. It is only going to get worse, and it's going to get worse quickly. Don't wait until it's too late, because we will shut down the roads when the winds are too high to safely navigate through the county. This is early afternoon. You need to finish securing your homes. You need to make sure you're packed for a couple of days. This storm has picked up a little bit of forward motion, but it is still moving slowly. We can expect hurricane and/or tropical storm conditions for at least 36 hours. It is not going to pass through our area quickly, and it's going to drop a tremendous amount of rain. It's going to have intense gusty winds. This will come on shore north of Venice at the moment, but how many of you have driven to Venice Beach? It is not that far. If you look at the size of that storm, and that image was taken about 2 hours ago, it has grown into a very large hurricane. It is expected to be a Category 3 storm when it reaches our shore. I can't underemphasize this enough. This is not something we have seen in the Tampa Bay area in 100 years. 100 years. This is a serious storm. It is not to be taken lightly. I know, I've been in the Tampa Bay area for decades too, and it seems like we always luck out. Do not count on us lucking out with this storm. It is serious. If you are on the islands, you need to be off of the island by sundown. The water will be shut off. The lift stations will be shut off. And if any of you don't know what a lift station is, that is what's required when you flush your toilet for what was in your toilet to be lifted off the island. You do not want to be on the island with a Category 3 hurricane and no water and no sewage disposal. It's not going to be fun, and it's not going to be safe. This is going to be a slow-moving storm. You want to be in a safe location to ride it out. Fill your tub with water to flush, but hopefully you're not on the island trying to compensate for the lift stations being shut off. And remember, if power is out, no lift stations in your area are going to be working. As the storm makes its way closer, remember to not head out in the storm. Once we get word out that it is not safe to be outside and driving a vehicle, please don't do it. Because if we tell you it's not safe to go out and drive around town, it means if you have a problem, our emergency vehicles aren't going to be out driving around town either, which means you're going to be stuck. If you see water in the road, unless you are absolutely sure you have X-ray vision and depth sounder eyes, don't drive through it. You may get stuck. As our utility folks are reminding residents to not try and remove manholes and cleanouts to clear clogs. Let our experts do it when it's safe to do it. Don't play utility guy. After the storm, if you want a job in utilities, you can personally call me. We'll hire you and we'll train you to lift those manholes. Current projections have landfall as a Category 3 somewhere north of Venice on Wednesday evening. That's about 6 to 12 hours sooner than was projected this morning. So we can expect landfall Wednesday evening, but remember, this evening is when we are going to start receiving tropical storm weather that is going to continue to escalate until we get the outer wall of the Cat 3 force winds, 120 to 125 miles an hour with gusts pushing 150. That's like flying a small airplane. You don't want to put your hand out in it. That is a lot of wind, it's a lot of impact, and it's going to be pushing a tremendous amount of water. Stay in a safe location. The track remains uncertain. The track remains uncertain. Just because we had a small update that says, well, it looks like that eye is going to go into North Venice and not Coquina Beach, remember, it is uncertain. A tiny little wobble in the other direction will throw the model back at us. But if you look at the size of that storm, and over the next 36 hours, it's going to get larger. Regardless of where it comes in Sarasota or Manatee County, you are going to feel like you're getting hit by a major hurricane. And guess what? Because you are getting hit by a major catastrophic hurricane. With that, I want to introduce our Congressman, Vern Buchanan, who I'm sure has been making the rounds up and down his district. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Let me just say, let me see how we're going to work this. Yeah, so can you take the
Tell you what, how about I help you?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Let me just say, I want to thank the emergency managers and the first responders who are tracking and preparing us for this storm and response. I did meet with Florida Power and Light, all their top leaders in the company, and I can tell you they're very focused here in terms of what they're staging in this region. It's gigantic. Sometimes it's a sea of trucks and capability, so help's on the way that way. This is a massive, slow-moving storm. The storm will produce a long period of wind and rain. There could be life-threatening storm surges. As was mentioned a little bit earlier, we've got to take this serious, and I've watched a lot of these storms over the years, and many times we get blessed or lucky, they'll head up north or head down south. I don't think this is the case this time based on all the experts I'm talking about. The track can change, which could have a severe impact. I do want to remind people, and those that were around during Charlie, I just was watching, it was supposed to go up in Tampa. It ended up doing a beeline into Charlotte Harbor, 90 degrees, and then it went from a Category 2 to a Category 4, like instantly. And I still remember that because we had a lot of employees and families and businesses who were concerned about it. Now is the time to execute your plan. If you don't have a plan, you make sure you do get it. And if you are in an evacuation zone, leave it if you haven't already left. We're monitoring the weather reports. We get a lot of updates. But I want to mention, listen to your local management of facilities. FEMA is deployed and ready. I just got off the line to the top appropriator for Florida, Mario. He's a very good friend of mine. He's called me, and we've made sure that we're going to have whatever resources we need quickly into this region, not just with FEMA, but additional resources from the federal government. Power companies are on standby, but it could be a few days before they get to you. We need to be ready. We need to be safe. But as was mentioned earlier, this is a serious storm. People need to take it seriously. And I'm very concerned kind of for the region, but I'm very hopeful. But I don't think, if you take a look at the storm in general, he did mention it might come down to Venice, but it's still in the region. It's a big storm, and we've got to do everything to keep everybody safe. But I will assure you, from my standpoint, a federal response in terms of FEMA and appropriators, we will be ready and supportive and do everything we can to get people back safely and quickly once the storm leaves, ideally on Friday or Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we take questions, I'd like to go ahead and let the Deputy Director and Emergency Management Chief Steve Lischauer share with you all of the activities that have been going on since we started at the level 2 and moved into level 1 this morning at 8 o'clock. Chief?
Thank you, Dr. Hopes. Thank you, Congressman. Again, a lot of this will be reinforcing what Dr. Hope said earlier. We increased our evacuation level this morning. That includes mandatory A and B, voluntary C. If you are in levels A and B, which includes mobile homes, manufactured homes, RVs, nursing facilities, and acute care facilities, you need to go now. Please do not refuse to leave. Please take our instructions and directions seriously. This is a serious storm. Surge levels have increased per our 1 o'clock national weather call. Very big surge starting Wednesday, which is less than 24 hours from now, we could see 5-foot to 10-foot surge, and in some areas near that eye of that wall, and both the congressman and Dr. Hopes talked, Venice Beach is not that far away from us. It wobbled, it can re-wobble. Near the wall, surge could be up to 10 to 15 feet. Please do not drive through high water. As we entered into what we call level 1 activation, you could see through the windows, we have an EOC full of our partners that ranges from law enforcement to fire to the power companies to utility companies. The Red Cross is here, the health department is here. State assets have already come into our EOC. Out-of-county assets have come here. They're working diligently to prepare for when the storm passes, that we can react as quickly as we can. But please heed our warnings in our evacuations area. Please adhere to the evacuation orders. See mymanatee.org/weather to see your evacuation level or to see a map. If you're going to a shelter, you must take a cot or sleeping bag, personal items, and especially your prescriptions. So please adhere to our instructions. Please be safe and listen to our instructions. Thank you. Folks.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Congressman. And I can't emphasize this enough. Our federal partners, through the funding that Congressman Buchanan and his colleagues have provided, have given us exceptional analytic tools to be able to go in and look at individual homes on streets and look at what the prediction is for storm surge. And when we say 5 to 10 feet, that's 5 to 10 feet above ground level. That's not 5 to 10 feet above sea level, it's above ground level. The federal government has done an exceptional job, and I can tell you because it's a pain in the rear for us to send them all the information. When you have new elevation certificates, they get that data, and it goes into the software. And we can literally put a flag on different corners of your home and tell what the storm surge prediction is for your home, whether you're on Wares Creek or Sneed Island or Anna Maria or Holmes Beach. And that's how we base these decisions with regards to both the evacuations and the emphasis that we were placing on it. Now, you've spent a lot of time with me over the past year and a half, and I got to thank Congressman Buchanan, because at every single emergency I have overseen, he has been with us multiple times, and he has been making phone calls to ensure that we have the federal support we need. And that doesn't happen in all areas of the country, but it happens right here because of the good work of Congressman Buchanan. Let me tell you what makes me lose sleep in this situation. It's people not heeding the warning and not evacuating. My goal for this stage of the emergency is no fatalities, no deaths among residents and visitors in Manatee County due to this emergency. Now, the sheriff spoke yesterday. They're not going to go handcuff you and yank you out of your home because you didn't evacuate. It's not fair to the good staff, the federal partners, the state partners that are here will be sleeping here. They're going to be locked in tonight. They will not be able to leave. They're here without their families to ensure all of you safely get through this storm. Again, my goal and the goal of every person here over the next 48 hours is no fatalities. None. I don't want to see it in the newspaper. I don't want to bear the burden that I didn't do enough. And the hundreds of people that are working every day. When we tell you it's a mandatory evacuation, we are not doing it because we want to push you around. We're doing it because the information that we have indicates that there is a risk for loss of life. So please, I don't want the police chief on Holmes Beach calling me to say, please don't turn off the water because you know our residents aren't going to leave. If you're on the island, leave. Do us that one favor. Take our advice, protect your life, so we don't have to spend the rest of our life wondering what else we could have done to convince you to evacuate to a safe place. A safe place that has water, a safe place that probably has electricity, maybe even TV. And if you go to a friend's house, you're going to have good company. Please, heed the warnings. You only have a few more hours. Pretty much, I'm sure, come midnight or 2 a.m. tomorrow morning, you won't be out on the road because it will not be safe. If you're in a level A or a level B, evacuate. If you need help, you call 311, you call a friend, we'll see what we can do. Follow the guidance that we're giving you. That's what you pay us to do. With that, I'll take questions.
Hey, Doc, let me add one thing. We've never seen surges 5 to 10 feet. Houston, go look at what happened in Houston just a little bit ago. It became a stationary front. We don't know whether this front's going to move through, how quick. If you get to 10-foot surges, there's going to be a lot of people hurt. Look at Katrina. Look at what happened just in the Bahamas, where there was communities of people that disappeared. So I don't want to be an alarmist. That's not I like to look at the bright side of things, but in this scenario, we have to look at the downside as well as the upside. And you've got to take this very seriously, as the doctor was saying, because if you don't, nobody's dealt with 5 to 10 feet of water above this. So just imagine that. You got to be prepared to do everything you can on your part to do that. We're going to do everything we can in terms of bringing resources and everything else, but the storm's going to have to take place, and that's why you have to execute your plan or your family to make sure. I know in our family, I've got 9 grandkids that we had to move them out of the area in a van, that type of thing, so you've got to do what you got to do. But I think this storm is different than anything I've seen. And even on Charlie, that was a narrow swath that went through there. And, but, you know, I just think about my friends in Houston. I talked to them. The front came in and stayed there. In the Bahamas, it came by and stayed there 2 nights. And that's what, I'm not saying it can happen here, will happen here, but anything's possible. And that's why I think we've got to be prepared for the worst, hope for the best, but we've got to be prepared. So I just would challenge everybody to not take this lightly, because the doctor mentioned earlier, all of us have been in these scenarios where you think a storm here and a storm there, nothing ever shows up much or a little bit here. But this is one, my sense of it is, based on what I'm hearing from my experts, so to speak, this is real, very real. So thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
With the now mandatory B, a lot of people have hotels, and their hotels are in Zone B. Are you anticipating more people going to the shelters now? What should you tell those people who have their reservations canceled?
That's one of the reasons why we opened 2 additional shelters. Hale and Buffalo Creek are middle schools. They have a much larger capacity. So that's, and you know, as we did with Irma, and I was on the school board then, we ended up opening shelters that weren't hardened as shelters because we needed to get people off the road. And hopefully other counties are as aggressive as we are with regards to getting the shelters open and getting people in. And those of you that are hesitant to evacuate because you're concerned about getting in, when it's safe to come back in, we are going to do everything we can to expedite your entry to your neighborhoods and your homes.
Do we know how many people are in shelters right now?
Do we have a shelter count yet?
We do, but I don't know what that is.
We'll get it for you for the next briefing. I mean, it's a steady flow, I can tell you that. Anything?
Dr. Holmes,
Yes, sir.
What advice do you have for people that live outside of the HVAC zone and are hunkering down in their
Ensure that you've taken all the precautions that you can take. Go online while you have internet and go to our website. We've got checklists for you. You know, some basic things like fill water bottles and put them in your freezer and your refrigerator. Turn the temperature down on your refrigerator and your freezer as low as it will go. Because the colder that is and the more you have in the refrigerator and the freezer, when you lose power, should you lose power, the longer it's going to stay cold. So make sure that you've got, you know, your supplies. Remember, the first 72 is on you. At a minimum, you need to be able to sustain your family and you for 72 hours. You know, that means water, that means fuel. Fortunately, I haven't seen long lines. You know, the gas stations are able to get enough fuel and get it out there. You still have a little bit of time to prepare. You know, the weather's not great right now, but at least you can do some of that last minute checklist completion. But if your home, especially if your home was built in the last, like, say, 10 years, hopefully, you know, after 2002, if your home was built before 2002, the hurricane standards there are pretty low, like 90 to 100 miles an hour, and that's not going to help you with this. So the newer your home and the higher your elevation, if you're not in an A and if you're not in a C where you know you have a propensity to flood, you can shelter in place. But make sure you have those supplies. Make sure you have your medications, and you're prepared to ride out a good 36 to 48 hours of bad weather with possibly no electricity. But just be safe.
And you've also mentioned, you mentioned the island and you're worried about residents out there. Is there any indication that visitors and residents are not evacuating the island?
Well, when I have the police chief of one of the largest cities on the island call me on my way here to this briefing to ask that we do not turn the water off so his residents can stay on the island, that's a pretty good indicator that there's a problem. And I'm going to do everything I can if I have to drive out there myself. But the water is going to be shut off. By sundown, there will be no water being piped to Anna Maria Island, none of the cities. And I guess Longboat Key, too, you know, because we provide the water to all the islands. And the lift stations will have to be shut down. And the reason why is because if there is a break, it will contaminate the whole system. And so because residents on the island want to stay there, if we were to leave that water on and then we have a problem, we could have to shut down the entire system for everybody in Manatee County because some people wanted to stay on the island because they're used to riding these storms out. And that's not this kind of storm. Because keep in mind, if you have a problem on the island or in some of these evacuation zones, we can't get there to help you. I will not put our employees at risk because you failed to take our mandatory evacuation order seriously. It's not just about you. It really isn't. We're all in this together. We are one big community, and friends help friends. If you're in an evacuation zone, evacuate, and do it before sundown tonight.
One thing I would add is that I would not want to have a 10-foot surge on any of the islands, because you might not be there.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, that's what happened in the Bahamas. They had a big surge, and they lost communities of people they never found again. And so you've got to take that very, very seriously. Just to add one other thing, because we have a lot of recreational boaters and everybody else, you need to take a look at that as well, or any of your property, because it could be floating out in the bay or something. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's another big issue in Manatee, Sarasota County, all these different boats and things that you got outside. You need to secure that.
Yeah, and that's an important point. I will tell you what I was doing for 2 hours. I mean, I took a break. I took a break after our meetings this morning and the board meeting, and I had to get in a kayak and run lines over to my neighbor's pilings to put my sailboat in the middle of the canal so it didn't end up on somebody's house. So you got to, while it's daylight, take time to do that. And keep in mind, when we talk about this surge, we're not talking about filling up your bathtub where you just kind of watch that water come up. We're talking about the potential of a wall of water being pushed by 120-mile-an-hour winds that is going to go and slam up against your property. We're not talking about a little gradual thing of the seas rising. I mean, we're talking about momentum. We are talking about mass hitting a structure, and you don't want to be in it. Anything else? Everybody's getting the message when we're having the briefings? No problems there? Okay. All right, thank you. We appreciate you keeping your viewers informed. It's the best way that we can get it out. Thank you all, appreciate it.